We want to spend a little time discussing the bottleneck report and helping you understand the bottleneck report and how it is used. So if we look at the bottleneck, the reason it's so important because in this industry, our bottlenecks are shifting all the time. You may think that you have a specific bottleneck in your organization, maybe engineering, but when you get a project that is causing different bottlenecks in different parts of your organization throughout its process. And the reason in this industry we have bottlenecks is because of all the variability. There's chaotic sales. You might sell a couple jobs this month and not sell any for 2 months. Or you might sell a bunch of jobs and they're all due in the roughly the same time frame. So you've got this chaotic sales process. And just generally by the nature of our products, it's going to create different bottlenecks in different areas based on the products that you have on any particular job. And then you've got the issues of field conditions, site conditions, customer interaction. You send information to the customer. It takes them weeks or months to get back to you. All these different things are causing variability within your guys' process. And really what the bottleneck report is it's a tool to manage all of this chaos. How can you visually see all this chaos that is happening? And as these bottlenecks move, how do you see those things move within your organization? So the bottleneck report, we would argue, is the number one tool in energy. And this is probably why a lot of your organizations bought energy, is how do we look at all of our information in one area and very quickly make decisions from that information. Now, the bottleneck report is populated from work orders only. So if you have $1 million project, but you don't have $1 million worth of work orders, you're not going to see it in your bottleneck report. So it's imperative that you are creating work orders to match your contract value. Now, to simplify things, the bottleneck is driven by 2 pieces of information and 2 pieces only. And those are the workflow step and the critical date for your work orders. So when you create your work orders, you are putting in a critical date for that work order. When is the work order due? When does it have to be completed? Whatever that step or milestone is in your organization, that is the date that is driving the bottleneck report. So if I have a work order that has to be staged or produced in August, it is going to show up in August, even if we're doing the drafting or engineering today. The second thing is the workflow step. So the workflow step, where's it at in your process? If that work order is in engineering, it will show up in that particular step in our bottleneck report. So again, keeping those 2 pieces of information correct. When is the work order due and what step is it in will keep your bottleneck report accurate. When you look at the bottleneck report, the other thing you want to think about in your organization is who owns those steps. So you want to make sure you define the owner and put in the description of what should be happening in that step. So in your workflow setup underneath configuration, make sure your organization has gone through each step in your workflow, determined who is the owner of that step. It could be a person, it could be a department, and what should be happening in that particular step. If you're on the bottleneck, you can highlight over the question mark and it will have the owner and the description of what should be happening. If you go into the Kanbans, you can see in there as well. But the reason that this is important is as an organization, what should be happening in each step of your workflow? And so then you want to educate your team. Take that information, take your description and educate your team of what should be happening in each of those steps. And then who should be moving those steps from one step to the next. As a project manager, it is not your job to move it from drafting to ready for review or whatever it is. That would be the drafter. Now, as a PM, you might be overseeing your project where things are at. But again, different people own different steps in your process. Another key concept with the bottleneck report is the wedge concept. So if you're looking at this bottleneck report, you will see that it's configured. There are some highlighted cells. Some are red, some are yellow. If your organization has not configured it, you definitely should because it makes it a lot easier to look at the bottleneck. Now, when we talk about the wedge concept, what that means, and I'll highlight this here, is there's probably some type of wedge in your bottleneck, whether it's more horizontal or more vertical. That doesn't really matter, but there's some type of wedge. And the whole idea with this wedge is what are the things that we need to pay attention to? And if it falls within that wedge, it should be highlighted in helping our company identify those things so we can address those. Things that are not in that wedge are probably on schedule. Things are going fine. We don't need to necessarily worry about those. So in this example, if I have something that is due in, let's say, 6 weeks that needs field dimensions, it's not going to show up as an issue. But if we don't get those field dimensions done and it gets, now it's 5 weeks out, 4 weeks out, etc., eventually that cell is going to highlight red, and that is going to be a key indication that we need to address whatever work orders are in that step. So again, make sure your organization is configuring your bottleneck report and start thinking about that wedge concept and what are the things that you need to address in your organization.